Welcome to Be With Champions. I'm your host, Greg Bennett, and today I have a wonderful chat with triathlon superstar Richard Murray. Richard shares his journey into the world of endurance sports from the farm in South Africa to the top of the world. We share some laughs in this one as he describes his penalties he's received in races and his eventual disqualification at the Hamburg World Triathlon Series race in 2016 when he was in a two-way battle with Mario Mola for the win. His rebellious personality, although entertaining for us as viewers, does get himself into a little bit of trouble at times. And Richard shares his training and how he's prepared for key races. And finally, he shares his thoughts on Ironman racing. Now, I'd love your feedback, so please follow me on the social media platforms. Instagram, I'm Greg Bennett World. Twitter, I'm Greg Bennett 1. And Facebook, you can just go to Greg Bennett. And like I said, give me your feedback. I really appreciate that. And I can respond to you there on those platforms. So I really appreciate it. And remember, success comes to those who endure just one moment longer. Enjoy this one. I really did. Before we start, I've got to give a quick shout out to the brands that make this show possible. The only brands I'm working with are brands that provide products that I use daily and truly believe in. These products support my immunity, they help improve my recovery and my focus. First up, my friends at Athletic Greens. I love this company and I love their all-in-one daily drink. It's become a part of my morning routine. I'm heavily focused on supporting my immunity and boosting my energy and helping my gut health, but I want to do it naturally. And I found that support with Athletic Greens, a whole food sourced green drink that tastes great and there's no hassle. It's delivered straight to your door. And it's a highly absorbable powder that takes seconds to mix with water, so there's no clumpiness to deal with. I can't believe a green drink sourced from whole foods can actually taste so good. Personally, I truly love it. It's developed from a complex blend of 75 vitamins and minerals. It's packed with adaptogens for recovery, probiotics and digestive enzymes for gut health, and vitamin C and zinc citrate for immune support. So Athletic Greens is designed to help fill the nutritional gaps in your diet. And there's a great offer going on now for you to give it a try. Simply go to athleticgreens.com/Greg to claim our special offer of 20 free daily travel packets with your first order. $79 added value. And get Athletic Greens delivered straight to your door. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Greg. This show is also brought to you by my friends at Hyperice. Some of these products I've been using for almost a decade. Makers of the award-winning Hypervolt, the world's most powerful percussion massage device featuring Quiet Glide technology. Hyperice is a wellness tech company that makes devices designed to help you move better. From handheld massage devices to vibrating foam rollers, thermal technology, and the Normatec compression systems, Hyperice helps you warm up faster, recover quicker, and simply move better. Used in professional training rooms throughout the NBA, the NFL, MLB, the MLS, Ironman, and other professional organizations for well over a decade. Designed to help improve circulation, flexibility, and relieve tension. Get $50 off all percussion devices now, no code needed, and get an additional 10% off with code GREG10 at hyperice.com. That's hyperice.com, HYPERICE.com, and use code GREG10 for 10% off. All right, I've been excited to have this man on the show for quite some time now. One of the great personalities of the sport of triathlon. He's one of the most consistent men on the ITU World Series, rarely out of the top 5 for almost a decade. He's had his big wins, including the ITU World Series events in Edmonton and Hamburg and Leeds, and the ITU Duathlon World Championships, and he placed 4th at the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio. He's won the big money races, including the Island House Invitational Triathlon and the Super League Triathlon. He's never afraid to just play it up for the cameras and give us a great show. So welcome, and thanks for joining me on Be With Champions. Richard Murray, how are you, mate?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for the introduction. Wow, I feel like I've achieved something. But
mate, I think you've been one of the most requested people I've had for this podcast, and so to finally track you down and have you on the show is a real privilege. So thanks for coming on.
No, this I've always I've been following you for such a long time as well. So I think it'll be awesome to be able to to kind of join together and do something cool. The last couple of weeks have been a bit crazy as all of a sudden have been some racing and everything. So kind of focus has been thrown on that. So yeah, it's kind of great to find some time to chat.
Yeah, well, you're back racing. You did Hamburg and how do I pronounce the next one? Kalavi Vary, the
Yeah,
World Cup you guys just did in Czech Republic. How does it feel to be just simply being back out there and racing? You had a seventh and then a fourth and showing some good form right there or thereabouts. How's it just feel after a year of craziness?
yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, the race in Hamburg all of a sudden 2 weeks before became world champs.
Mm,
So it went from we don't know whether this race is even going to happen to okay, now it's world champs, and then you realize that there's not much you can do to prepare more than what you've done. So kind of you kind of got your hand of cards, and that's what you're going to deal and what you're going to put on the table. And so kind of going into that, we kind of knew, well, we're not in the best shape we could be, but I'm pretty certain no one really is either. It was kind of cool going into that and having the first race. And I think everyone was thinking, oh, man, in the last week, it could also get cancelled, or a couple of days before it could, the cases could go absolutely skyrocket in the country. And all of a sudden, it becomes a no-go. It's kind of difficult to kind of prepare yourself for something that might or might not happen. I think the whole year has kind of been a little bit like that. And I think from that race, it was also behind closed fences races. So the public and stuff was literally like screened out from the race completely. So even if you went down to the course, you couldn't actually see the road where we were racing on because they put these like 2.5 meter high fences up with black stuff on so people couldn't actually watch us. Which was kind of a weird. I mean, I tried to watch the ladies race or females race, and I couldn't see any of it. I had to like walk 3Ks up the road, 2Ks up the road to actually get a glimpse through the fences. So it was
wow.
a weird feeling, and it's not really something we've ever had to deal with or experienced before. And also having the briefings normally, we go to the first race and it's that excitement of seeing the other athletes and kind of how things been going and whatnot, and you kind of get that interaction with other athletes, which is kind of what triathlon is really. And then there was kind of none of that either. And so it's kind of interesting, but the race took place. It was like all business and no fun, if that makes any sense.
That's well put.
A very weird, feeling, especially after the race, you want to kind of congratulate people and, but you couldn't really do that all that much because everyone kind of kept distance and kind of did their own direction. So it was a very interesting race. I think, we did the Super League race 2 weeks before that in Rotterdam. And after the race, everyone just disappeared. And where'd everyone go? So it was almost like we raced and then the race, everything got packed up and everyone was gone, like right after the finish. So it was quite kind of a really weird take at how kind of triathlon has been going this year.
Yeah, I like how you put it there. It's like all the work, but none of the fun. I mean, for us as fans, we got to have the fun, I guess, in just watching some incredible athletes do their thing again. So it's great that it's come back for us as fans and people that just love the sport and love watching you guys do what you do. But I get it for you guys, the whole idea of the mateship and the hanging out and just all the energy that goes with it. And on one of your YouTube shows, and I'm going to refer to your YouTube show a bit because I think you're doing a fantastic job. But I loved that, both yourself and your wife, Rachel Klammer, also incredible professional athlete in her own right, doing the briefing online in your hotel room as you kind of rode your bikes there. And it just, when I had Vincent Lewis on the show the other day, he said, "Oh, I didn't even turn it on." He's like, finally, I didn't have to go to a briefing. So he saw it as a positive. But I also like what you say in the sense of planning for the year and trying to get excited about doing the work, but not knowing if there's actually going to be a race for you. It's kind of like trying to go all in, but then holding yourself back a little bit. It's like this: do I go? Do I stop? And it was funny because I mentioned Vincent Lewis again. He also said, look, when he went and he was training with Joel Filio, he said, look, I'm going all in on Hamburg no matter what happens. And then he said, and then they announced it as a world championship 2 weeks before. So for him, it was like, here you go. It was the perfect combination. And I just think it's very tough for you guys, but I'm enthralled and interested by the fact that you've all been able to keep your motivation up and your fitness up this entire time. I mean, how have you and Rachel been able to sustain that kind of get up every day and keep working without knowing if there's an event coming?
Yeah, I think that's the one thing a lot of people are kind of asking is how do you stay motivated when there's kind of isn't a goal, there isn't a goal, there isn't something to shoot for,
Mm,
as they say. But luckily, the one thing is I kind of just enjoy training. I enjoy getting out and exercising and being outdoors every day. So for me, kind of that is like the enjoyment of it.
mm,
I think you got to kind of enjoy doing that every day. Otherwise, I think if you're an athlete that looks for goals all the time and there were no races this year, you're going to be a little bit lost.
mm, mm,
And you're going to have less direction, if that makes sense. And so I definitely, for me, it's always been, I started doing sports because of fun and I continued, and I've never really wanted to lose that sight of doing that. And so we kind of mixed things up. We got on the mountain bikes as well. But when we were here, I wanted to do a really, really long ride. I always wanted to ride like over 200K. So coach said, okay, cool. We're going to like kind of do one. You can make the loop as big as you want, go as far as you want, whatever. And I saw a lot of athletes ended up doing like, they're also doing stupid, crazy rides. Like the Norwegians did like 340K or something the one day. And then it became a competition of who can ride the furthest in one day. And then Martin van Riel went and smashed out like also 350K. And then it was like, oh, no, but it's how fast can you do that as well? So I thought, Jesus, it's become like an online battle. And at the start, I thought, well, let me see if I can go and smash all the comms in our area on one run.
Oh my God.
I'm like, let's see if I can pack like 14 comms on one run here in the area.
I think that's been really fun watching you guys. There has been, your 5K run that you did on the road, and you ran that, I think it was at 13:37, which is just blows my mind. For people listening, if you're an athlete, you probably understand just how quickly that is. For people that maybe are amateurs or non-athletes, let me put that in perspective. Go to your local gym, turn the treadmill as fast as it'll go. Now, that's not even fast enough to equal what Richard's done for a 13:37 5K. It's basically 2:45K pace or something like this for 5K. And then you went and did a 3K, which was also a phenomenal time. And I think all of us were enthralled because I think you did a bit of promotion before it. And it's like trying to create these little outcome goals for yourself for a little bit of motivation, but at the same time staying really present on the process goals and simply focusing on just enjoying the training. But tell me about those, the 5K run and the 3K run.
Yeah, I think that I didn't realize. So that's kind of how my YouTube channel restarted. I kind of made it in 2011, my YouTube channel, when I was in Maui at the ITU World Champs. I took a video cycling. I think I was cycling up like on the bike course or something. And I thought, I've got to put this on YouTube or whatever. And I uploaded like a 20-second video to YouTube or something in 2011, just on my phone. And I look back and I was like, oh yeah, that's when I started my YouTube channel. I didn't even write a description, or I didn't make thumbnails and all this other fancy stuff. Like it was just raw. And then after that, I made a couple other videos with GoPro stuff and whatever. And then after this one, I thought, well, I want to run a 5K. As fast as I can, and I'm in some pretty good shape. And 2 weeks before that, or 3 weeks before that, I think, I done a 5K on the track, and I put spikes on for the first time since I was like 17 years old, I think. Literally like the day of the race, I put brand new spikes on and went out and smashed it on the track, and I like completely underestimated training during the week, and I kind of banged out some 1Ks like 3 days before the race. And I banged out, I think I did 3 by 1K or something at like 240 average or something like that, like 3 days before the race. And then the race came and I was like, I want to run under 14 on the track was my goal. And then I did like 14:15 or something. And I was like super upset. I was kind of like, I don't know why I'm so upset from not running what I wanted to, but I kind of didn't plan it correctly. And I ran on the track and I was like, well, I'm going to give it another go, but I'm going to do it on the road because we normally race triathlon on the road, not on the track, like turning all the time in these corners. And so we literally set out a course. I tried to find a loop that had the least amount of corners in to kind of get the GPS as accurate. I mean, if you have like 10 or 15 corners, your GPS usually cuts them and it makes you faster. And so I tried to find a loop here, which was luckily we're in the Netherlands, so it's pretty flat. So that wasn't a difficult trying to find a flat course. I kind of found the flattest possible course with like I think there's 3 corners on the 5K. And they're quite wide as well. And there's kind of a bike lane on the inside. So it's almost like you're running on a track, just running on the road. which is quite cool. And yeah, I went with Rachel's dad in front of me on the bicycle. I wanted like a pacer who could go like at 245, and I could just literally sit on the bike and try and make sure I run the same speed as the bike. And Rachel's dad had a running watch in front of me, and he's a runner as well. And there was like a bit of a crosswind as well coming from the side. And I was like, oh, today's not going to be the day. And luckily, Rachel's dad managed to like block the wind that was coming, like a crosswind in the last K and a half. I had like a crosswind from the left, and he managed to block it for me. And so, yeah, it was pretty wild. And I think the running time as well kind of made a bit of a stir in the South African community of runners. A lot of them had a lot to say and said it was impossible and triathletes can't run so fast and blah, blah, blah. And had all this backlash from some haters, which was quite enjoyable, actually.
I don't know about. I'm a bit disappointed to hear that, because I think anybody just giving it a good go, it's like I think that's crazy. And the other thing to back up that, look, hey, triathletes can't run that. We've since seen, young Alex Yee from Great Britain run his, what was his, a 13, you probably know it, 13:30 or something. And then Connix, I think, also ran a 13:40 or something. Incredible times that you guys are all running now.
Yeah, I think the Mario Mola also ran a 13:40 as well on the track. And I knew that I've always wanted to run under 14. I ran 14:05 in Hamburg when I actually won Hamburg in 2:12. And that was 50 meters short. And that was like after swimming, biking, and then running 5K. So I was like, well, surely I can run under 14 if I just run it all out or just once. And so that was that was how more or less the motivation happened. And then someone said, no, I should run a 3K, because I looked and I went, oh, maybe I can do a 3K. And if I can run under 8 minutes, that would be also pretty epic.
It's unbelievable, mate.
I was like, well, can I run? Can I actually do that and go under under 2? Pretty much, I had to run just under, I think 240, and then I had to do the last 1K under 240. And that was like I almost missed. I literally almost missed it in the last 400, 500 meters. Went around the corner, and then I had guys like live streaming, and then the live stream died as well because we were like kind of in the middle of nowhere and there was no signal. So it died like at 2K, the live stream. And then people were like, you can't do that. How can you make a video? And the live stream dies. But
mate. Well, I'm just so blown away by those times. Absolutely incredible. And I'm loving your YouTube. It is up now. You've been obviously working incredibly hard on it, and go check it out for people, listeners. Go check out Richard Murray's YouTube, because you're doing a lot of work, and it looks like you're doing all the work. A number of the guests I've had on this show have people that they employ professionally to follow them around and take videos and manage their social media. But from all accounts, it looks like you're doing all the work, and I love just how authentic it is. I love the camera being turned on first thing in the morning and poor Rachel trying to wake up and the camera's in her face as she gets out of bed. I think it's actually brilliant what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that was I think that was with my 5K. After I did that, I said, I have to upload this, and then I think that's got about 140,000 views now on that 5K video, which was like kind of my first real posted video that I posted on YouTube. And then I thought, I'm going to do the 3K then as well. And then it kind of spiraled into me buying some stuff. And now I'm like looking at trying to get music rights and all these things and stuff, and busy figuring it all out myself. And I am doing it all myself, which does take most of my day. But I think it's cool. It's a different medium to give back in a way, and kind of like to show people our daily life versus just like Twitter and Instagram and those types of things. I'm not heading anywhere towards TikTok. I'm too old for that. I've definitely had a lot of people say, like, TikTok is where it's at as well. If you're younger, and then maybe but when you get older, it's like, is everyone that funny? Like, I don't know, like, just not sure.
I think it's great what you're doing, and look, in doing some homework for this show, it's fascinated me this next amazing group of talented athletes that have come through over this last 10 years that basically retired people like myself that have been hanging on for too long. And when I was doing homework, I looked up, and one of the first big wins you had was the 2007 Junior Duathlon World Titles. Now, what actually stood out about that Junior Duathlon World Titles to me was you won, Alistair Brownlee was second, and Mario Mola was sixth. Then you went and won the junior world title again, the duathlon world titles in 2008. You won. Mario Mola was 5th. And then Jonathan Brownlee was 13th. What fascinated me about all of that is that you've been with this entourage, this new wave of the two Brownlees, Mario Mola, Vincent Lewis. You guys have come through and you've been competing with these guys relentlessly for 13 years, your entire career. And the other thing I noticed with that, and I just want to get your thoughts on it, when I look at your resume, nobody has been more consistent in getting 4th and 5th in the World Series for 10 years. But every time it's the two Brownlees, Gomez, Mario Mola, and Vincent Lewis that seem to be there or thereabouts. Your resume, had the Brownlees not been around, wow, it would have been something else. Tell me about how you feel coming through this era.
Yeah, no, it's actually interesting. I actually had a sit-down chat at Super League with Johnny Brownlee, and we had like a heartfelt conversation with each other that was recorded, which should be coming out sometime. It should be quite entertaining. And yeah, I remember racing. Alistair and Jonathan the first time in I think it was in Győr in Hungary. And I think it was Johnny who crashed out on the bike course during the run and stuff. And Alistair went out on the start of the run, and then I was like, I had to catch him on the run, and I caught him and managed to. It was like my first kind of international win as an international athlete. And since then it's been like Jonathan literally explained it. He said like we've had you chasing us for our entire career. And I literally said, yeah, I feel like I've been chasing you for my entire career. That was literally that could almost be like a book in itself called The Chase. It's definitely been funny. Whenever the two Brownlee brothers are there, it's always like they're the ones that they keep the front group literally pushing along, and they keep things moving, and it's almost like I have to chase them down, and then they literally want to try and stay away from me.
It's like your run is both a gift and a curse, right? I mean, you showed it in 2007 and 2008, and all you did was put fuel to the fire for these guys to swim harder up the front because everybody's petrified from your run. I mean, both you and Mario Mola are the ones that are forcing the pace up front. I mean, if you guys weren't there, I think that front pack would slow right down.
Yeah, well, I think it's got to do with, you only need to go as hard as you need to kind of win the race, if that makes any sense. And I think obviously you burn more matches if you're in a smaller front group, so that obviously you need to calculate that. It's almost like Tour de France where it comes down to the line a little bit. But yeah, I think the front guys now have definitely, obviously over the years, gotten a lot more streamlined in the front group, and they have the same intention every time the race happens, We know that we're not going to come out. I think I can count on my hand the amount of times I've come out, maybe count on 3 fingers, the amount of time that I've come out in the front group. And then I've actually had like horrible races sometime when I came out in the front group, which maybe I'm just not used to coming out in the front group and not having to like just annihilate myself the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes on the bike. It was just a weird scenario then or something. But yeah, no, I definitely think it's, it's always been the chase, and Mario and myself kind of end up running together the last couple of years, trying to chase the Brownlees and Gomez and Vincent and those guys down for sure.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch, and I've always seen you chasing. Now you've got some Norwegians that are often with you to help chase that little group of 5 or 6 that are often off the front. It's nice that you've got a little bit more bike support, a little bit more bike power, so you're not alone in the chase. But it has made it very entertaining for us as spectators to see if the chase group can catch up, and even going back to Hamburg, what was now the World Championships, and basically that 15 to 20 second margin. It's so close. It's so close. You guys are almost there. It's been a real joy. What I want to do, we've kind of talked about some of the recent stuff now and your YouTube, but what I would like to do is just to get a better understanding of your background, where you came from. And I guess, when did you sort of first identify endurance sport as a passion? And tell me a little bit about that kind of experience.
So I think when I was a mountain biker, so I actually come from the off-road scene, and I grew up on a farm just in the Western Cape in South Africa. And mountain biking and cross country running was kind of where it started for me. And I first wanted to become a runner, actually. And I did track and field, so I ran 800 and 1500 on the track. And I never really made it I made it once to the South African champs when I was 14 years old. And I kind of went there and I ran I ran the 1500 and I ran 4 minutes flat on the 1500 in one of the heats. And I came stone last, boys under 15. And I don't think I'll ever forget that, thinking, geez, I ran my PB here, 4 minutes flat. I'm like 14 years old. I thought that was pretty good. And I literally didn't even make the final. And for me, that was like, okay, my track career is now finished. I'm going to try and do something else. And I was doing mountain biking as well at the same time. And it was definitely like a passion, like running for me in cross country. I ran cross country as well. So I was actually South African champion as a junior for cross country when I came through. And so I was doing track and field and cross country. And then I was doing mountain biking at the same time. And I kind of really enjoyed those, kind of like the difference between the sports. And I did mountain biking then for about 5 or 6 years, kind of seriously. And I was national champion twice for my age category when I was a junior for mountain biking. And so I was pretty serious into the mountain biking. I went to national, then I went through to under 19 level mountain biking. And I also got annihilated at one of the races, kind of. And I was thinking, well, is mountain biking really what I want to end up doing? And so I was kind of like stuck between running, mountain biking, and road cycling. So I was also riding for a road cycling team at the time as well. So I kind of pick off between which race happened to be on what weekend. And so the multi-sports kind of was kind of started to do it when I was younger already. I just hadn't put it all together. And so when I was about 14 or 17, that direction, I started to do duathlon and the odd triathlon. And so I went to the Western Province Champs, which is like our district champs. And I swam, and I was literally like the worst swimmer you could ever find. And every race I would come out, like, I think we did like a 400-meter swim or something, and I'd come out like a minute, like the last person by a minute or 2 minutes behind out the swim. And I'd catch up on the bike, and then I'd manage to take everyone on the run. And I was pretty happy with that. And then all of a sudden, when I got to like kind of junior distance, it moved up to 750. And unfortunately, then my 1 minute behind became like 3 or 4 minutes behind out the water. And I thought, this is disgusting. Why do people need to swim so far? And I don't enjoy this. I'm not going to do this anymore. And then I literally said, duathlon is what I want to do. And so then I was like, went to World Champs, and I managed in 2005, I think was my first international race in Newcastle in Australia. I think I was 16 then. So it was my first year in the under 19 category. I was 16. And I think I ended up coming 5th or 6th or something like that.
5th. I can see it here in front of me. 5th. There you are.
I went out on the run on the first run. I went out like a psycho on the first run or something in the duathlon, and then I managed to get reined in on the bike. And the second run, I was just done, finished. And so duathlon was then my thing. And okay, well, I'm sort of good at this, and there's world champs and cool. And so then I did that, and I got my 2 world titles as a junior. And I was thinking, okay, well, where to next? And he said, well, this is the highest you can get. And I thought, geez, like it. Well, I've got to find something else that's higher than this, because I'm here already now. And so someone said, yeah, well, the coach said, if you learn to swim, you can make good money in triathlon. So I said, okay, that's going to be a tough call. How long is that going to take? And the guy said, about 5 years. I thought, geez, like it. I said, that's a long time. And so from then I literally thought, well, if I want to make money in sports and triathlon's going to be it, then I've got to learn to swim. And I think I was 20 then, I think 19 or 20 about. And and then that was kind of how triathlon started, really. And it's like from the extreme sports era. I also did motocross as well when I was a junior. So my father raced motocross and enduros for about 30 years. And so I came from the motocross world as well. I did some freestyle motocross, enduros, a lot of different things, downhill mountain biking as well. So a little bit of everything, and then kind of ended up doing endurance sports at the end.
I love all of that. I think that's you've got a unique past coming off the farm. You know what I mean? It's like, I think you're my first guest that's really had that real that farming background, which is, being out on and riding the motorbikes and riding the mountain bikes. And anybody that's watched you race or some of your videos and how you can control a bike, you're our Peter Sagan in the sport of triathlon is Richard Murray, the guy that can chuck a wheelie whenever he wants to. And it's amazing to watch it. And you've done Xterra World Championships a couple of times, correct?
Yeah, no, I've got to fix my world champs that I had a couple of years ago. I think 2013. When I went to world champs for the first time I only went to world champs once for Xterra, and I kind of failed miserably at it. And I've got to go back and fix that one day. But I learned training in the Netherlands kind of when it's 5 degrees and raining and it's flat. Then to go to Maui where it's like pretty much the complete opposite temperature. It's probably not the best preparation for that race. And so, maybe next time I'll prepare probably in South Africa or somewhere hot beforehand. And then maybe.
Yeah, I'd expect that would be a world title for you for sure. And you could back up the great Conrad Stoltz, who I raced throughout my whole career, who is one of the greatest Xterra mountain biker, triathletes that I think we've ever seen. And it sounds like that's definitely up your alley in the future. And I hope that actually event gets bigger and bigger because I think it's an incredible event. But when did you kind of realize, I mean, those times that you're running as a young teenager, 4 minutes for the 1500, is just, like you said, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. But you're getting blown away by the rest of the South Africans. But was there a time where you were like, I am going to be an athlete for sure. Like I feel this talent, this strength, this is what I should be doing. Was there a moment or was it just over time?
No, I think it was a little bit over time. I did when I was in primary school already. I was kind of, I wouldn't say an overachiever when I was in primary school, but when I was about, I think when I was about 8 or 10 years old, 11 years old already, I was running cross country and I really enjoyed like the competition and being competitive. And I got a whole bunch of the school records and stuff when I was going through primary school for running. And we had like a grass track back then. So all the times and everything was on the grass track. And then when I went through to high school as well, it was the same thing sort of, but I kind of, I was kind of a teenager then. So I was kind of I wouldn't say a bit rebellious. I was very rebellious. I was kind of like trying to fit into how can I be cool and do sports at the same time. And unfortunately, like endurance sports and those things isn't seen very cool in many countries when you're a teenager. Like it's just not cool, So I was trying to say, how can I fit into the party scene as well as being an endurance athlete? And this is like, I think if anyone's from New Zealand or Australia, they can probably kind of understand this phase of like teenage plus endurance sports athlete. It was kind of the way that it went through. But definitely when I was young, I definitely knew that sports was definitely something that I wanted to, pursue one day. And I just never knew, in what type of sport or what, form that might be really.
Well, you do have one of those kind of unique personalities. And I said at the top of the show, I think you've brought something to triathlon in that kind of personality, that little bit of rebelliousness, that little bit of downhill mountain bike, motocross type personality into the sport. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but generally speaking, triathletes tend to be fairly A-type personalities. They're fairly driven in all areas of their life. They're very, very disciplined and well behaved. And I think you've brought a little bit of flair. And I think there's a few of you actually in this generation that have brought a little bit of that, which has been great for the sport. And I will get to, I mean, you probably know I'm going to bring it up at some point, one of your events that you were disqualified for in the last few years. But I don't want to talk about that right now. What I want to talk about is continuing this journey of when did you kind of go, was it that coach when he said, okay, you've won Duathlon World Championships twice as a junior now. If you want to make money in the sport, you've got to go over to triathlon. Was it at that moment you said, right, I'm going all in now. This is what I'm going to do?
No, I think the moment where I thought I'm going to go all in was actually after, I think it was not too long after that. That was the same year that I raced Duathlon World Champs in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was in Rimini. And that same year it was Vancouver World Champs Triathlon in Canada. Like probably the coldest triathlon that I can ever recall. Like it was
Oh,
just
the worst. The
disgusting.
worst, mate. The worst.
And we've raced some cold triathlons before, but I don't think, I mean, even the ones, the other ones in Canada, which have been in Edmonton, have been equally cold. It wasn't an Olympic distance race and wasn't pouring with rain like that, but that year literally almost came last in the World Champs triathlon. And I was literally thinking, if I want to continue doing triathlon, I've got to do something special. And because my swim was so shoddy that literally I came out and when I was running like last place and the commentator was saying, oh, it's a World Duathlon champion coming here at the back of the field. For me, that was the turning point towards like, I need to do something, otherwise I may as well chuck the towel in. So it was an interesting, I'll never forget being chased by the front group. So I was almost a lap behind. Like solo time trialing for the entire 20K. And I think when I turned back once or twice, I could actually see the front group chasing me. And I was thinking, I'm going to get lapped out here today. And I think for me, that was kind of the turning point towards, I need to do something serious about this.
And do you know who won that Vancouver Junior World Championships?
Vincent Louis, probably.
That's right. Vincent Lewis won that. And then Jonathan Brownlee was third, Joshua Amberger. So there's some incredible names in there that would have been hunting you down. And just talking about Vancouver Worlds, I remember at the end of 2008, both my wife Laura and I went through our season and was like, yeah, this was a pretty good year. We did this, and this. And we went through, as you do, we totally had blacked out Vancouver that had ever happened out in our minds. And that's not to say it wasn't a great event for those that did well, but for us, because of the cold, we both froze. And I remember I had to finish on the podium to cement my spot for the Australian Olympic team. Otherwise, Australia was going to lose its three spots for the Olympics. So I got off the bike and I knew I was in good running shape. And I'm running with Javier Gomez for the first 2 to 3 kilometers and going, yeah, I've got this. And I remember just getting to 4 kilometers and just completely freezing up, and it was just my glutes and hamstrings and everything just froze up. So I want to let you know that you weren't alone in remembering that Vancouver was a tough experience for those that prefer the fair weather or the warmer weather type conditions. It was kind of brutal. So then after that, I mean, your progression's pretty good though. After that, you say you couldn't swim. By 2010, you're winning the African Championships. You're then getting top 5 in European Cups. You actually starting to knock on the door of looking at 2012 as a realistic, opportunity to go to the Olympics. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, you know what the interesting thing is that I only started to think about the Olympics in 2012.
It's just.
A lot of countries will have this 4-year plan, and they'll have, we're going to do these training camps and we're going to be funded by this and that corporation and blah, blah, blah. And then in Africa, it's literally like 2 months before you'd be like, you've qualified, and it's written in the newspaper, and, book your flights and off you go, and that's kind of how it worked. And, I needed literally to get on the podium a few times in the start of 2012 to qualify. So I thought, well, what's the chance of me racing for my first season of World Series and getting on the podium a few times before the Olympics? I thought, well, there's maybe a 2% chance that could happen. And then, funny enough, that actually ended up happening, which was quite a moment. And I was actually training with the Aussies in Wollongong just before Sydney, the World Series, which was probably one of the coolest venues that I can remember for triathlon. It's pity that it's not on anymore, and it's always nice to race in a place that you know that it's going to be warm. That's always positive. I mean, in Europe, it can be hit and miss. It can be the middle of summer and it could still be cold, which is kind of the way Europe runs sometimes, especially Hamburg and Rotterdam and some other, races in Europe. But it was definitely quite a quick progression, and not something that I put a hell of a lot of thought process into, really.
But I love that 2012 and just touching on Sydney. Yes, I think Sydney, of all the spectacular backdrops in the world of triathlon, we raced there all through the 90s, obviously leading up to the Sydney Olympics. Just an incredible backdrop for triathlon. Perfect terrain, hills and flat. It's got everything you want. It's an amazing race. You got second there. You back that up with a third in San Diego. And then very shortly after, you stormed on to win your first World Series race in Hamburg. What was that? 5 weeks before the Olympic Games, 4 weeks before the Olympic Games.
Yeah, that was quite an eye opener. It was literally like, okay, well, I'm starting to 1 or 2 races well, and I was actually leading the World Series after Hamburg, and I never raced the next race was Madrid, and I was like, I'm on a good run here. Let me just take a break and not race in Madrid. And it would have been the one time that I would have worn the number 1 swim cap at an ITU race, and I didn't race there.
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. But you were focusing on the Olympic Games.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Olympics, no, can't race Hamburg. And then I literally got sick after that for probably like 4 weeks. So I didn't train for like probably 3 or 4 weeks after that, like the same weekend as Madrid. Funny, I only thought about that now when Rachel got the number 1 after winning Abu Dhabi last year or the year before. So she got the golden, like they had the gold numbers and stickers and everything. I was like, shit, I never really got that, but you can't get everything you wish for. It was quite a crazy turnaround of thing, and having like sprint finish with Javier Gomez. My parents were there as well, which was quite cool. So they got to witness that with me, which was quite awesome. And yeah, coming down to the last, Javi and myself, running away from the field. And, the funny thing is I always compare, it's funny, the Brownlees weren't there, and a couple of guys that were racing the Olympics didn't go there, just in the fact of because, it's a race before the Olympics. If you come down there, that's your Olympics gone. But, in my mind was Hamburg was actually my first WTS race I've ever done before. So I was like, well, I've got to go to Hamburg. The crowds are massive and they've got great beer and schnitzels. So, I mean, why would you not go to Hamburg? And
I love that.
Yeah.
I don't think you can look at it as the Brownlees weren't there. I think, that's what my wife would do. She would win a race and be like, so-and-so and so-and-so is there. And I'd be like,
it wasn't fact.
Mate, so long as I'm beating whoever's out there, I wouldn't care. I could beat, if there was only 5 guys on the start line, if there's only 2 guys on the start line, I beat 1, I'd still be like, yeah, I'm awesome. But my wife would always break it down, dissect it and everything else. And you did beat, I mean, when you look at that field, you still got, Jan Frodeno is coming in 10th. Bevan Doherty was 11th. These guys are the medalists from the 2008 Olympic Games. Javier Gomez, like you said, was almost undefeated up until that point. It must have been just an incredible feeling. And to just top off what you said about Hamburg, I actually won the very first Hamburg event in 2002, and I didn't want to race it. And I was tired. I think I just raced Lausanne the week before. I didn't want to do it. And Laura said, Greg, you got to go race this race. You'll enjoy it. The crowds are incredible. And so I went and did it and had a win. And I never forgot just the deafening crowd for the entire course. It's a very, very special one to have on your resume. So I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it was even, I don't think many people would know either as well. My flight that we booked coming in was delayed, and I ended up missing the briefing, and I got put to the back of the start list as well. So when we started the swim, I was like, so obviously, for not everyone that knows, if you miss the briefing, so they obviously have the briefing where they tell everyone how the race is going and whatnot. And I literally messaged them and said, my flight's been delayed. I'm going to miss the briefing. Like, it's not my fault. Like, can you still give me like my position? I'm like number 5 or whatever, stand next to the good swimmers. And they said, no, sorry, you missed the briefing. That's it. You get put to the back of the start list where you start next to guys that you have no idea what their swimming capability is like. And you'll most likely start in the middle of the field. So you'll like the pontoon, everyone lines up, and then you'll stand right in the middle and get an absolute smash fest to the first boy. And so I stood next to the guy next to me, and I was like last to get called on, and I thought like, gee, this is really happening. So I'm like called on number 60 or something, and I asked the guy next to me, said, I was just swimming, and he didn't speak any English and just looked at me and shook his head, and I thought today is going to be a good day.
Oh, that's brilliant! I love that. And like you said, you were number 4 in the world, where you kind of get those better starts. And it's like I had Vincent Lewis, like I mentioned. He said, having the number 1 and being able to pick number 1 and being on the outside, and even for myself, when I did fortunately get to that number 1 for a little while there, it was like, the freedom of being able to choose the far left or far right and having nobody hit me on the other side was always just. I always had the best swims of my life. And that's when your ranking went down. And my final kind of ITU races back in 2011, I think I had kind of small hopes of maybe going to the Olympics again. I kind of threw my hat in the ring, and here they'd call me out at like number 65 or whatever it was. My ranking was so poor, and it was the worst. You just had to find this little space between everybody. Just, I love it. So I just want to. You went on then. You got 17th at the Olympics, but you were dealing with some sickness, you said?
Yeah, no, I was. I don't want to say that's why I was bad at the Olympics, because I was ill for a couple of weeks in Germany, because I didn't have anywhere to go to train. It sounds funny, but I was literally a South African wandering around finding places to train. I know Aussies and Kiwis know this all too well, and you kind of far away from the triathlon mecca, which is Europe, and you got to head there to obviously train and race, and you got to find somewhere to stay. And so I was actually ended up rooming with my German teammates in Saarbrücken, and obviously I actually got told to leave the city by the German National Federation, because the German National Federation was training in Saarbrücken. And I was there, like busy sleeping in someone's living room on a mattress, and I literally got told I have 2 days to leave the country. And I thought, like, I've got nowhere to go. Where can I
leave the country or leave Saarbrücken?
Leave Saarbrücken.
Oh my God!
I think it was a month and a half before the Olympics, and I'm like, oh, where on earth am I going to go? And so they ended up going to. I think in the south by the Black Forest, Freiburg.
Beautiful.
And then I went there to train, and then I got really sick there because I got like dust allergies and whatever, and I ended up getting really sick and having like bronchitis practically. And then
I love it.
My father had to actually fly over there to kind of come and save me from myself. He flew from South Africa, flew over there, and he said, no, you can stay until the Olympics and whatever. And then we went to train with the Aussies in Pretoria. So I went from there literally like, no, we're going to go good weather, somewhere nice to can train with other guys. And the Aussies were Jamie Turner, and they were really open for me to join their group. And so I was really thankful for that. And so I kind of went there and joined with them in Pretoria, which is like an amazing training. The location there is so good. And nice like gravel trails around the city. And so I went there and trained there, and then from there went on to London, and kind of did everything I could really. And I knew the race was going to be kind of a brownie breakaway, and we have to chase. And then that was the case. And then we could run for probably top 20 or something like that if all goes well. And then that's more or less how it happened.
No, I see it. I think my wife also finished 17th. Laura also finished 17th at London. Just a quick mini break before we get back to the show. I just want to remind you guys to go check out athleticgreens.com/Greg. Sign up and get your free 20 daily travel packets with your first order of $79 added value. That's athleticgreens.com/Greg. But then after that, mate, 2013, you start to become this very consistent athlete. Who was coaching you then after 2012? Did you settle down and find a coach and get a bit more sorted?
After 2012, I actually started with Joel Filial in 2013. And I think he was coaching some age group athletes, I think, and then he started the JFT crew team. And then, we kind of did the first camp in Florida, in Claremont. And we were there training for a couple of months and stuff. And I kind of enjoyed it. It was like my first international group. Over the Olympics and stuff, I had a coach, Lindsay Parry, who was helping me with my coach, but I was also kind of self-coach. I kind of half self-coached myself through London. And I was kind of writing my own sets, my own training programs for some of the stuff and joining people here and there. So it was kind of a bit of a random existence in 2012 a little bit. And then, 2013, I started with Joel. And, I was kind of with Joel for the next, 5 or 6 odd years. So quite a long time after that. Obviously got through many World Series podiums through that, and many, many great races under Joel Filial.
Yeah. And I mean, you see your consistency just suddenly come alive working with Joel and that crew, because it's, like I said at the top of the show, you 5th in the World Series in 2012, 5th in 13. 14 was a bit of a down because you came 8th. And this is quite incredible, mate, because it is just incredibly consistent. Then 4th in 15, 5th in 16, 4th in 17, 4th in 18. It's just this, and very close at times to being on the World Series podium, right behind these kind of guys. Tell me, how does that feel? I mean, I was fourth at the Olympics. I was always known as the consistent athlete. How does that feel? I mean, I certainly don't want to cheapen it because I think it's remarkable feats that you're doing, but it's like you're there, but you're just missing those, the big time.
Yeah. The funny thing is, like, it's sometimes like, I wouldn't say a hit and miss me sometimes, but I can either be there sometimes or sometimes I'm not there. And I think the thing with the interesting thing is people generally only look at the result. They don't look at what's happened before. So I think that's the one thing where I always look at the process and not the outcome always, because I think the outcome is obviously, the process is the whole part that you enjoy. And the outcome, if you win all your races but you're really sad, not enjoying your situation, then you're actually not really doing yourself any favors. And I think the one thing where I really wanted to actually become was somebody who's consistently there all the racing, always there, always in the mix. And that's something that I really wanted to aspire to becoming. I think I kind of got that from Javier Gomez. When I saw Javier Gomez, he's like the most consistent guy you can find in triathlon. And I was like, that's really something I want to try and be like. I want to be there, and people like, I wouldn't say people like worried about you, but they always know that you're there and you could mix it up if the race comes to you to a certain degree. But I think for me, it's always been whether we catch or not on the bike. So if we don't catch, then I can run myself into maybe top 5, top 6, something like that. And then if we do catch, I can maybe climb on the podium. For me, it's like a real, and then if both of the brownies are there, the chance of me getting on the podium kind of goes down somewhat. I can always calculate what percentage down it is. Also whether the brownies are on form or not, or if it's in the start of the season, it's always dependent on a few things. But no, I always see it as, if I gave my best and the result is what I got, then, that is what it is.
No, I certainly don't want you to think that I'm not. I think what your outcomes have been absolutely incredible. And like you said, when I had Alistair Brownlee on this show, I basically told him that he retired me from the sport. It was like, it's like I had, I'd raced for 27 years as a professional. And of those years, I always felt deep inside I could win a race. And I should say it was probably Alistair and both Javier Gomez, both of them combined. I kind of left going, I don't know how to beat them. It was really like this paradox. I was stuck trying to figure out how to beat them. Whereas in the past, whether it be my mates Javier, Hamish Carter, Simon Whitfield, the list goes on, Bevan Doherty, we all had our turns. It was almost like we all got to share a win at times, and we all figured each other out and beat each other up, and it was a lot of fun. But I just remember with both the Brownlees and Gomez going, God, I don't know. My last race, I think, against them was in Austria, and I came out of the swim not far, and I was taking turns with Alistair, and he's yelling at me, and I was yelling at him, I was just kind of like the old guard, and I got this new young punk yelling at me, and just trying to outwit him on the bike and be stronger than him on the bike, because that was where I felt my real talent was. And then even then, I think he still rode away on the last lap, and then he did a 28-minute whatever 10K off the bike, and I finished 20th or whatever. I was like, these guys are incredible. So, mate, you talked about Joel Filiol, and you had a lot of success with him. You got you on the podium at the Commonwealth Games in 2014. You had that incredible race in Rio, 7 seconds shy off the podium there.
Yeah, no, that was the one. I think under Joel, we both like. I mean, it was definitely a great progression. Something that, I mean, he's an amazing coach to keep his consistency and progression through athletes. If you could look at Mario and Vincent Louis, he literally brought their consistency from being, every now and then having a great race to becoming world champion. And both from Mario and from Vince as well. And that was an interesting scenario because I was kind of in between that kind of era when Vince kind of came out and Rachel and I kind of moved out. I think it was going into Rio as well, like having busted my collarbone. It's always interesting, but people said, "Oh, you got beaten by another South African. That must be the worst," because it's kind of like you come fourth, which is bad, but then you get beaten by another countryman, which is one place area. That's extra bad. So it's like getting like slammed twice. But I always look at it as like 4 months before then, I was like on peak form in Australia, and I like crashed on the bike and broke my collarbone. And I was kind of thinking, like, can I even compete in 4 months' time at the Olympics type of thing? It was like a mental thing against myself, and to actually see if I can actually. I thought, after like 3-4 weeks, my collarbone's going to be solid. I'm fine. I'm going to get back, and I'm going to have 3 months to train. And then after like 8 or 9 weeks, they said, no, the bone's not completely fused yet in your shoulder. And I thought, this is going to be a very tough call. And I literally had like 2 months of swimming.
It's almost like the fourth place is the guy that gets the injury 12 to 16 weeks out. Because I look at Javier Gomez in 08, my wife Laura in 08, both managing injuries, just trying to get through, both get fourth. Myself in 04, had been world number one in 02 and 03 and was excited to be on the team. I wouldn't say I was a favorite, but I had a very good shot at that medal. Boom. Had 6 weeks to train for the games, did the best I could, and walked away actually quite happy. And it's a bit like you said, it's like if people actually understand what you've been through just to get to the start line and then to put on a performance like that, it's still really an incredible performance. And I left my Olympics going, yeah, that was the best I could have done with what I had at the time.
Yeah.
Is that how you felt?
Yeah, I mean, I felt I was actually like, yeah, I had exactly the same thing, thinking like, man, I did the best I possibly could. I like ran the quickest. I had a good bike. My swim was actually, I thought, was in a better state than it was. And when we raced, I realized it actually wasn't. And further back than I thought. And also with Hamburg as well, kind of like, it's funny, but I was going, I think the race just before, it was like clockwork again in 2016, me racing against Mario in Hamburg. And that's where I got DQ'd, and I was literally back on form, first race back from a broken collarbone. Mario and I like dueling it out for the win. And then Mario leans over and tells me during the run, Richard, you got a penalty while we're running. And so I don't think everyone knows this, but so Mario told me I had a penalty, and then all of a sudden we're running. So we're like probably 20 seconds or 25 seconds up on the field after 2.5 or after about 3K on the run. And he tells me I got a penalty, and I'm like, is he trying to like get to me mentally or something? Like, is he trying? Because I'm like, I'm not going to have any of it. Like, I don't care what he has to say to me. And, because he was like surging, and I was countering the surges, and I'm like, no, bro, we're coming to a sprint finish. And then I was literally running, and the Spanish coach shouted at me, I have a penalty. And I was like, not another one, is what I thought. I thought, what on earth is this for now? I said, like, because it was like 3 years in a row I got a penalty in Hamburg. Like 3 years. Like, that's like, and the one was for, man, I've had some like real petty stuff. Like, the one in Hamburg was for leaving my water bottle standing next to my bike.
Oh.
So my like overall third place in the World Series and the prize money from the race and everything got all taken down because I left the water bottle, and then an official thought it would be good now to give me a penalty for having a water bottle standing next to my. It didn't even move. It just stood there the whole race next to my bike.
Oh no!
And
what year was that?
So that was 2016 when I got DQ'd, and so I literally ran.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you had a wetsuit in somebody else's bucket.
Sorry, that was 16 years. I put my helmet. The BBC wanted to do an interview with me. I'm standing in transition, and they call me over. Richard's got to come for an interview. So I put my helmet on the wrong side of my bike, and then I went to do an interview. And then when I came back, I was a bit rushed for the swim start, and I left my helmet there on the wrong side of my bike. So it was actually in the opposite athlete's bin. And then when I came in from the swim, I'd go straight to my helmet immediately, which happened to be on the wrong side of my bike, and then chuck my wetsuit into the box, which was the other athlete's box. God. So it was like a snowball effect on and now after that I learned focus and transition, don't do interviews while you're kind of like setting your stuff up, because that was kind of it was like a snowball thing that kind of, that's how it ended up happening. And then obviously I chucked it into the wrong box. And the year before I got a penalty for the water bottle. And then this time I literally flipped. So then I was like, it doesn't matter what I do in Hamburg, I'm going to get a penalty. I may as well just take one, like in case on the run or something. And then I stopped with the official, and the official stopped me. Obviously I knew I had a penalty, and I stopped. Now I'm already like, I want to have a sprint finish with Mario that's been taken away from me. And then I stopped there, and the official then obviously, like as I stopped, the official now grabs the thing out, and I already lost a couple of seconds in grabbing the timing thing out, and then he pressed start on the thing. Then I'm asking him like, what is it for, the penalty? And the official doesn't even look at me. So then I'm like, what is it for? So then he's like, just keeps looking at the stopwatch. Then I start screaming at him, what is it for? Like at the top of my voice. And this guy didn't even look at me. Yes, and I was literally like fuming. And so then I ran out the penalty box and I gave it like the soccer ball, F yours type of thing.
Yeah.
To the event. It wasn't actually, so everyone thought I aimed it at the official, but I'm like, I know the official is just his job. Like I'm not a person who would it's his job to give the penalty. So it wasn't his choice. It was someone else who made the call and he's the guy who stands and gives me the penalty. And so I did that, and then I ran across and punched a few signboards of the event organizers across, and then started banging on the window and screaming and swearing and pulling middle fingers at the live television, which probably was not the best call in hindsight, because I realized that Chris Gemmell was there busy doing this with his hands under his neck telling me to stop, and I was like freaking losing my business on live television, which was an interesting moment.
Well, we all enjoyed it, mate. I remember watching that live. I don't know where I was. I think I was in Colorado, and watching that race live, I think we were all disappointed to not get another sprint finish, because you and Mario have had your tussles over the years, and I think it was at 2014 London when it was like a 7-man sprint finish, and I think Mario just got you on that one. I think you got second to Mario on that one. But I think we were ready for another great sprint between you guys. And then suddenly the commentators were going, Richard has a penalty. He's going to have to stop. And it was going like, oh. But then we still got a good show after all, mate. It
was kind of it was funny because after the race, I didn't know, they hadn't told me I'd been disqualified. So then I thought, like, they went there and they said, yeah, no, you got to go into the officials booth, and they've got like this kind of like a camper van type thing where the officials standing in. And I went in there and they were like talking to me and they were saying, yeah, I might be disqualified. They're looking into it and stuff. And I said, like, yeah, what for? And they said, no, for unsportsmanlike behavior and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, you're probably right on that one. I might have overreacted in the heat of the moment, which probably, I don't know, most people probably would have, to a certain degree, a lot of the time, I don't know, it depends on your character, I guess, a bit, whether you kind of blow up or whether you just suck it up and go, okay, well, another penalty. In hindsight, I should have actually just sprinted Mario for the finish, because if I had known I would have been disqualified, I would have just thrown my penalty out the window and gone for a sprint finish.
Yeah, that's right. And at least had the win and know that you had him.
I'd rather get nothing than lose at a sprint finish.
Oh, mate. And I felt for you because, it is one of those, it's like you said at the start of the show, you being an endurance athlete and you felt like you were a rebellious sort of guy, and maybe and then I felt like 2016, well, finally you got to show you a bit of rebellion, but they came down pretty hard on you, and so hard, in fact, that, like you said, I think you would have finished on the podium that year for the World Series, right?
It was also like, because it was, so second place was like 16,000 US. So I lost that. And then I lost the points for overall because I got disqualified, which was like second place is a lot. And then I ended up finishing 4th or 5th at the end of the year. And then when I calculated at the end, I was like, man, that's like 40 grand that I just lost for like just mouthing off on live television.
I know. Oh, mate.
It was like, and the funny thing is, when I came out, I didn't know I'd been disqualified. The way I found out I was disqualified was when I walked out this camper van and I saw somebody else climbing on the podium in second place instead of me.
Yeah. So that was Jacob Birtwistle from Australia. I think it was his first time on the podium. And
I said, does that mean I'm disqualified? And they said, yeah, that means you're disqualified. So that's a very nice way of portraying it.
Oh, jeez.
I was like, wow. And then I was thinking of all these, and then I had drug testing as well, still, after that.
Oh, even being DQ'd. No.
And I had drug testing, and I said, wonder if I just decide now that I'm not going to do it and they can go and shove their head up their arse.
I know. Oh, mate, it's just when it rains, it pours.
Did I now get banned from sport because I missed the drug testing?
I know. Well, that would be the next thing, wouldn't it? And then you've taken it too far. Oh, mate. And have you had any penalties since?
Well, I've actually had less so far, touch wood. But I think some of the times, it's for small little things. I try and stick in the rules as much as I can, because they do eye me out quite a lot. Because I think once you become somebody who gets penalties often, they kind of I don't want to say they like to victimize you a bit, but they definitely do in a little bit, the small regard. And some events are more tricky than other ones. Like, it's interesting, but it depends on which officials are officiating what event as to how strict the rules will be or not. And there's also like favorites. So some athletes don't get penalties when they should do. That also happens.
Is that right?
Yeah. I've seen it many occasions where some athletes did some things where they looked and even say it over the microphone, but then the officials didn't see it. And everyone afterwards said, like, how can that happen? How did they not get a penalty? And it also always depends on the official on the day who kind of decides to whether give the penalty or not, or if it's in good faith or not. And I think that's one thing where I find in triathlon kind of takes away from the whole part of triathlon, if that makes any sense. Like, triathlon's there for athletes to race each other. And if somebody pushes someone into the fence and they crash or something, or they steal someone's bike through transition or something along those regards, I find that kind of takes away from the sport, and that should definitely not be allowed, but kind of takes away from the actual racing.
I have a story on when I got a penalty. This one will be quite funny. So Delhi Carr, the famous photographer, triathlon photographer, sends me a photo via email to both Laura and myself. And it was from the Beijing, I don't know if it was a World Cup or World Series, whatever it was, back in the 15 years ago now. Anyway, I'd gone there to support Laura. I wasn't really had my head in it. And he sends me these photos, and it's called Beauty and the Cheat. So the beauty is Laura laid out dive on the second lap, running around, taking this beautiful dive. And the first picture is of me fully laid out on the start line, already in the water with everybody else still standing on the pontoon. And I got this enormous head start. I probably had like a 3 or 4 meter head start. I just wasn't thinking. My head wasn't in the game. And then I just decided to go for it. And already I'm like, well, the penalty is 15 seconds for beating the start. So I've got a couple of second lead here, and it'll get me in a good swim position by the first buoy. Just optimize this 15 seconds. I get to about halfway towards that first buoy. A guy behind grabs my ankle. He was pissed off about it. Another guy comes over the top and belts the crap out of me. I ended up coming out the back of the pack. I came out of the swim almost 2 minutes behind. And I get to T1, and the official says, Greg, you've got a 15-second penalty. You're so far behind, mate, that they're probably going to lap you. So we're just going to let you go.
Well, that seems like the right call there.
Yeah, mate, I was so pathetic, and it was an accident. I lost my balance and then just decided to push. You know when they say you're in the hands of the starter and they got the heart rate thing going, boom, boom, and I just went up. I put my toes on the edge way too quickly and just. I was like, "Oops, I'm going. I better just dive and make the most of it."
I think I did the worst false start in a swim at Super League in history. If you want to go back and look at it, the pontoon was like plastic on the front, and I like do a 2-foot start when I dive. So now everyone's leaning forwards, and I do 2 feet, but we had already dived in the time before, so it was wet, the plastic. So when I put 2 feet together and everyone stood forwards, the pontoon slipped downwards in the front, and I feet slipped, and I went feet first in for the dive start. And there's got a picture of me looking like a duck going into the water. I'm almost like pretzeling it into the water. And then everyone dives, and as I'm in the water, I'm thinking like, this is not going to be a good 300 meters swim. No. I thought, I'm definitely not going to come out in the front back. Yeah.
Oh, mate, I love it.
Second penalty as well. I think I got a 10-second penalty or something as well in T1. So I came out I'm like, this is so KO for me because it's a 4K bike.
Yeah.
There's no chance of me making this.
I mean, you just got to laugh. I mean, sometimes these things happen and they just feel like you ever get those dreams, those triathlon type dreams where just random things are happening. I've had so many of those where it's just, I remember one time, I think it was Geelong World Cup, and I'd had to go back to my hotel right before the start for some reason. And then the hotel was right near the transition. So I took my bike back and put it on the rack, and they've got us all lined up to walk down to the start. And fortunately, I think I was number one at the time. So I'm walking down number one. They're about to call me out. And they're like, Greg, someone noticed you don't have any bike shoes on your bike. I'd gone back to the hotel and left them in the hotel. So I've had to run back to the hotel, cross the road in my whole gear. Everybody's now focused on the start line. Grab my bike, quickly put them on T1, and then I didn't get to pick my first spot. Obviously I missed my ranking. So again, I got to choose last on the pontoon. But these kind of things, they're almost like nightmarish type things. They're the kind of things that, you have dreams about, but when they actually happen, God, you just got to laugh. It's awful, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think I've got, I wouldn't say one that's similar to that, but I remember the one junior athlete. I'm not going to mention exactly who it was because if he listens to this, he'll probably know exactly who he is. But he woke up like about 40 minutes before the start of one of the grand finals, and he was in the room and stuff. And the start was really early; it was like 7 or 8 a.m. or something like that. And then he woke up and he thought, "Shit, man, it's like 40 minutes to the race start." But then he blamed the federation for not waking him up. I thought that's an interesting one, but no, I think that waking up 40 minutes or half an hour before your race start, or my dream of me busy packing all my stuff into my suitcase, and I look outside and then I see everyone lining up on the pontoon, and I'm like looking out from the hotel and I see everyone lining up and I see the like horn blow and they all dive in, and I'm there in my hotel room still getting my stuff ready. Like I'm not ready and I missed the start.
Oh, mate, that's awful.
Which is like the worst.
You know what happens?
Like...
I haven't raced for 5 years. Oh, I still have these dreams and I haven't raced for 5 years. They're awful.
Yeah, you're almost ready, but you're not ready.
Yeah. Now we talked about Joel. You guys decided you left Joel. I just want to move on a little bit here because I'm interested about the team that you've built around yourself now. Obviously, now your wife, Rachel Clammer, you guys were married earlier this year. And tell me about your coaches and your team that you've got around you.
Yeah, so we have quite an interesting team of coaches currently. We've got we have a coach that does our biking and running. He's Louis Delahaye. He coaches a whole bunch of top road cyclists under Mika van Vleuten and and he was one of the coaches of the Lotto Jumbo cycling team as well for a couple of years. And so now he coaches our biking and our running and our general overall kind of program. And then we have Jordi Mullenberg. They're both Dutch coaches, so we have 3 Dutch coaches. Jordi Mullenberg he works with the Dutch Triathlon Federation, as well as Louis also works with the Dutch Triathlon Federation. Jordi does our swimming program as well. So when we are traveling and when we are going to new places or going on camps, Jordi writes the training program for that. And then we have a kind of like a technique, well, I wouldn't say like a technique coach. We have a high performance swimming coach here that when we're in the area here, we train with them in a 50-meter pool, and they were the KNZB, which is like kind of the district national, well, the district swimming club, like the top level swimming club. And so, yeah, when we're here, we join them, and he helps us a lot with our technique and stuff. So when we're here, we kind of do the swim programs of kind of a mixture of Jordi and of Jeroen Rademacher, which is the Dutch national, one of the swim coaches here where we live close by.
Oh, brilliant! And was there a reason you left Joel to do this and probably take a little bit more control of what you're doing? Or
yeah, I think one of the big ones is kind of we were getting older, which is kind of I don't know, if you're with a coach for a couple of years. After a few years, it's always good. It's kind of, I want to say it's similar to a company, as in like. You need to sometimes refresh things and you need to try something new and try something different to see if you can kind of get something different out of yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I think, we had a great relationship and things were working extremely well. We were going on camps, things were well organized, and it was great. And I think Joel also started coaching with the Italians as well. So he was kind of getting a lot on his plate. And we kind of felt like, we really wanted hands-on, being there all the time type of coach. And we felt like we wanted to move coaches and try something different before Tokyo Olympics, this one. And so in 2017, it was our last year with Joel, and we kind of did a fun year where we did like every race under the sun in one season. I did like my first half distance race in Samorin, Challenge Samorin. Rachel also did it. We did like Xterra in South Africa, where I became South African champion there, which was pretty cool. And so we kind of wanted to move just to kind of be based as well in one more place, not to be, living out the suitcase as much anymore. I did it for about like 8 years or 9 years living out the suitcase. And I kind of felt it was a time to kind of spend more time in one place and kind of feel like you have a bit more of a home. That was more or less the thing, kind of getting that homely feeling was kind of the major factor we wanted to have.
I like that. And I think I've described it as I look at coaches almost as getting a degree. I always looked at them as that sort of 4 to 5 year type cycle of learning whatever you can from a coach, and it doesn't hurt to keep moving to another coach. It keeps it fresh, and you keep learning and you keep growing. I'm not saying that's right for everybody, but that's kind of how I approached my career. And then it got to the point where, a bit like you're doing with Rachel, Laura and I decided to take full control and decide how we're going to operate. And one of those key things that made a difference for us was to have the 2 home bases and reduce the travel. And for us, that ended up being sort of, Boulder, Colorado and Noosa, Australia. Wasn't ideal for Laura's career, who was still focused on the ITU World Series, which tends to be fairly European focused, whereas it did help me, with my sort of US non-drafting big money races here in the US. So it helped me, but it might have hurt Laura a little bit, that 2 home base. And creating that home base, it did a lot of things. One, it reduced the travel, the amount of time in the air and everything else. But secondly, it also allowed us to build really good teams in both those locations. So I think you've done it's a really good thing that you've done.
Yeah, I think that was I kind of agree with that in quite a sense. And also, especially now as well. I mean, during Corona and during these things, I would have actually been in South Africa, and they kind of had like a full lockdown. You couldn't leave your house and stuff for a couple of months almost. And so I'm fortunate on that regard to also be in the Netherlands and be able to have the great facilities. And obviously the lockdown was slightly different. And it's kind of nice to have both weather conditions as well. Obviously we leave for South Africa most years in October, November side, after the European season racing kind of shuts down a bit, and we head through to South Africa and we kind of get the summer there as well. And we've also decided at the start of the thing, I decided for Christmas that we do 1 year South Africa, 1 year in the Netherlands as well, just so that we don't fight on stories, because that's always going to come up. And I had to kind of knuckle down and have my first European style winter here, which was quite an eye opener for me, coming from 5 degrees C minimum temperature in Cape Town, or 4 degrees, something like that, to kind of like negative degrees cycling outside here was quite an eye opener for me.
Our similarities don't stop, mate. That's what we had to do. You got to keep the mums happy. We've alternated Christmases for 20 years now, trying to keep, go between Australia and the US here, mainly to keep the parents, in-laws happy and my own folks. So I totally get it. Tell me, we've talked a little bit about this, but I'd like your physical training, what your typical week. I mean, you have that on YouTube. You've got some great documentary on it, but sort of how many hours a week are there, and what are some of your key workouts or your favorite workouts that you're doing both in season and I guess sort of just out of season as you're building an aerobic base?
Yeah, so I think actually the one lucky thing is I'm actually a personal trainer, so I studied conditioning and coaching after I finished high school, and so kind of that's how I implement that a little bit into my training program. Luckily, Louis is quite open to me kind of adjusting things here and there if I need to, which is kind of great, and definitely something in a coach we were looking for as well. Just to have a little bit more control on what we're doing and obviously how we're feeling and that type of thing on a daily basis. So I think mileage-wise in a week, I kind of go on the low end of mileage. So probably anywhere from probably 20 hours to 27, 28 hours being the really, really big weeks for me. So that's like kind of hour-wise. On the swim, probably we do like 20 to 25 or 26 Ks of swimming in the week. So that's kind of a general swim mileage for the week. On the bike, I probably do about 250 to 350 on the bike every week, which is also not a hell of a lot of riding. I mean, a lot of guys ride a lot more than that, 400-500K type of thing in the week. But I find, for me, I come from a bit of a cycling background and that stuff, and I can kind of get away with focusing on the key sessions I need to do instead of just adding mileage for the week. And then on the running side, I probably do anywhere from 60 Ks being kind of a low running week mileage type thing to about 90 or maybe a direction of 100 if it's a really, really big running week.
Mm. That seems to be about the normal. And I think as long as you're doing fairly specific work on the bike, I see a lot of guys adding 4 to 5 hour bike rides, often just to get the miles up and the hours of training. But I think being specific in what you're doing, I think there's a lot of junk miles done on the bike. So do you have any kind of key favorite workouts that you love to do, maybe leading, a couple of weeks out from a race or anything like that that you really enjoy doing?
So I'll generally try to look towards what the course is like leading into the race. So I'll check out how many corners, the U-turn type of thing. Depending on the season or how many races we've done before that race, it's always good to obviously just do transitions and stuff and make sure we don't get the small things wrong. Always the first few races in the year, you always get the small things wrong. So for this year, we had to go and check transitions out and pulling shoes on and pulling helmets on and wetsuits and all those small little things that can cost you big time when it comes to the racing side of things. And from the running side of things, I actually don't have – I've kind of gone through a lot of different cycles of training things. So there's no like one bread and butter session that we'll do. But I think some aerobic – I do a lot of aerobic endurance running. So most of my mileage running for my speedwork sessions, we kind of do 2 speedwork sessions a week. Usually it's a Tuesday and a Saturday. Here in the Netherlands, Rachel's father goes and he enjoys running on the track. They run on the track, but they run on the track at about 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday evening, which is quite a random time to run your track workout. But it's the word that they call is gezellig here in the Netherlands, which is like chatty or having a good conversation with other people, and that's quite important here in the Netherlands. So we go and do our track workout on a Thursday evening sometimes, and we kind of just fill in. There's a running squad here, kind of mostly age groupers or guys kind of aged 40 to 60, somewhere around there, running on the track. And so, we join them and do a track workout with them as well. And it depends what they're doing. Sometimes we do 400s, sometimes we do 600s. Usually in summer, they kind of do shorter speed stuff. And with our coach, my aerobic endurance running is anywhere from like probably 315 to about 340 a K. And so I do most of my speed work within that range of about 315 to 340.
I like that.
And it's kind of interesting, but coming from like a track and field speed work lifestyle when I grew up, I've kind of got speed. So if I got to go out and bang out a 1K as hard as I can kind of go and do it. But the thing for me is it's almost like I need to focus more on my aerobic capacity. And if I can run a bit slower than my race pace, I kind of build myself, then I actually break myself down. And so, that kind of ends up working for me. And the best thing is it ends up working for Rachel as well. So for Rachel, she's kind of more of, she needs to run faster for her to get quicker. So we actually end up having the same session a lot of the time. And I kind of got to run in front of Rachel and be like a pacemaker. And so some of the times Rachel can hang on at 320 or 325 for most of the reps as well.
That's fantastic. And you know what I used to do with Laura, and it's the next little bit I just want to chat to you about quickly, but for Laura, I was always a very visual person. I visualized, I always had a commentator in my head. I was always playing games. It was always happening. And Laura always, she wasn't drawn to that kind of thing. So what I would do with her is do her workouts a bit like you're doing with Rachel, run that sort of 320, 325K pace. But I was able to commentate next to her and create the imagery and all the excitement around the race. Do you do that with Rachel at all?
No, I'm not. I do give her the odd cheer here and there, and the one time running on the track as well. And the guys are like, "Oh, what are you doing? You're running 320, and you should be running 250 a K all the time," type of thing. I'm like, well, it's a unique scenario here that ends up working, so we're going to stick to it. And I think definitely she has to go all in for those things to kind of get the benefit. She's like a diesel engine. The worst thing is that I see her being more long distance worthy than myself in some regards, just because I'm like a very like fast twitch type, speedy type carry. It comes naturally, but the endurance stuff for me is, I kind of burn out much quicker than she does. She kind of gets better as she goes along. So like the longer for her, the better.
Yeah, no, I think with the aerobic training is fascinating to me. And I know when we started coaching ourselves in 2004, for me, I did a lot of work on athletiad type training and trying to figure out how, if I can run, like you said, run a 1K in that 240, 245, well, why can't I run 10Ks in 250, 255? Why can't I hold it? And what am I missing? And that's where that endurance running, and I used to call it best easy pace. What's the best easy pace? And that doesn't mean slow. My long runs for 2 hours were often done in that 340 to 345K pace and just holding it there where I just got this enormous strength and endurance. And I know Javier Gomez and I used to train together in Noosa a lot, and both of us would just hold this 340 pace for that 2 hours. But then that aerobic endurance that you got, you knew you could then sprint a 10K. You knew you weren't going to break down. Is it that same kind of philosophy that you're doing?
Yeah, it's actually, it's not as long, so the reps are kind of a shorter rep as well. So most of my runs are kind of done at about 5 minutes a K. So probably 80% of the running is done at about anywhere from 4:45 to 5 minutes a K. I used to be at about 5:10 to 5:15 for the last couple of years. So most of the runs would be over 5 minutes a K.
Wow.
And I used to only run 4 minutes a K. So when I started running, 4 minutes a K was my bread and butter. I used to go out and 40-minute 10K 4 times a week, and that was my running finished.
Yeah.
And then that would be enough. And I kind of learned that I've got to actually run slower sometimes, which I had to learn to run slow, which was tough. And joined the local running squad, and they were all running 6 minutes a K. And so going from 4 minutes a K to 6 minutes a K is a big jump. And I've never run more than about, I think 10Ks was the longest I'd ever run until I was about 17 or 16. So
wow.
10Ks was where that was my limit. And I'd done mountain bike races, and I did road cycling races of like over 100K. I did 100. I think I did when I was 18, I did a 200K team time trial when I was 18 on the bike. And so I've done a lot of like aerobic capacity on the bike, but on the run, I hadn't done it. Which sometimes you can actually get away with aerobic capacity from the bike, actually transferring a bit to your run in a certain regard, and maybe not exactly the same, but you can definitely get a tiny bit of aerobic capacity from the bike. And so I actually learned to run slowly, and then kind of for me to run. My heart rate at about 120, so I'm quite heart rate orientated, and I try and run at like 60 to 65% of max heart rate for most of my runs. And so that's for me at about 120 heart rate to 130 heart rate, and for me that's at about 5 minutes a K.
Yeah, wow. That definitely keeps you uninjured and healthy, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think that it's a very low impact as well. So I kind of generally run a lot of the time really, really slowly, and just kind of build aerobic capacity. And when I need to run fast, then I can kind of go out. And I remember one time in the off season, I wanted to run a 5K to see how fast I could run. I hadn't run for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And I thought, let's see how fast I could run. I still managed to do like a 15 or 15:20, or for like no running for like almost a month.
Wow. That's really good running.
Yeah, so it was so luckily from that side the speed, but I think for a 10K is a different story because you need the aerobic capacity more than on a 5.
Yeah, I agree. So let's just move on a little. There's so many other things I'm going to have to skip over here because I have a couple of big questions at the end here that I want to chat to you about. What do you think it's going to take to win the gold medal in Tokyo?
In Tokyo, I think being able to race well in the heat will be one. It's not ridiculously hot like Cozumel or Huatulco or any of those races, but it's definitely hot and humid. So I think your swim, obviously the swim's got to be there. You've got to be in the front pack. That's one big thing. I think closing on the Tokyo course is very, very hard. It's a very, very tight and very technical course. So you've got to be in the front pack, and then you've got to be able to run probably a 30-30 or a 30-20 run in the heat.
And so when you're talking about heat, what are you guys going to be doing to prepare? Where are you going to be living and preparing for Tokyo?
I actually didn't do any heat preparation for Tokyo. Luckily, I come from South Africa, so for me, the hotter the better. If it was 45 degrees Celsius and we were racing, I'd be a happy man. But fortunately, it's not 45 degrees. But No, in the summer in South Africa, I think over the years, for me, hot race, cold race, I don't really mind, which is, I wouldn't say, well, a little bit fortunate, but I've got a really high core temperature. So when it's cold, I can still train in the cold, which is good. And then when it's really hot, I kind of shed heat pretty well and kind of cool down reasonably well. So in the heat, I kind of enjoy racing in the heat. So yeah, I don't know whether you can acclimatize yourself. I mean, if you're in need of acclimatization, but the only thing is in a really hot climate, you don't recover and you don't sleep and you lose a lot of liquid. So actually not a huge fan.
No, it's a really tricky one to do. At the end of the day, whether you're doing altitude, whether you're doing heat adaptation or anything, they're extra stresses. And when you add extra stresses, they're extra variables and something has to give. I mean, you hope that the body's getting stronger, whether it's altitude or heat acclimatization, but you can be hurting yourself on the other spectrum of your training suffers and everything else. So, or your sleep, like you said. So it is this kind of going for too much could actually hurt you, but identifying that it is a hot race, understanding how to keep your body cool both before and during is going to be critical. But it is going to play a major part, like you said. The winning run times, being in that sort of 30-20 to 30-30, well, that's a minute and a half off what you guys are capable of. But that's how the effect of the heat and humidity can really stack up against you guys. What about long term? I mean, I look at you and think, I mean, you said, you're all speed, you're all power, but biomechanically, when I look at you, both on the bike and run, I see somebody who's going to be very capable of developing into a great Ironman, half Ironman athlete. Is that on the horizon?
That's definitely not on the horizon. No. No, I'm actually, it's interesting, but actually, I actually want to become a coach. I did one half distance race, and I don't want to say I found it boring, but I found it boring.
No, you can tell me that, mate. I agree with you.
I was like, why am I here? I could be out on a training ride somewhere in South Africa, busy abusing myself here. And I think what happened is the first race I did was like the worst race to ever pick, like a race challenge tomorrow against like Brownlee and Sanders and Keenley and Rayler Brother and Andrew Dreitz. And so that was my first half distance experience, which was a pretty reasonable field, I'd guess. And I kind of got put to shame on the bike and realized that 330 or 320 watts is not enough when it comes to that. And then I kind of thought, well, yeah, I don't know. It was a long day out racing, and I'm used to like competitive and, almost crashing. And this is going to be dangerous. So like running as humanly hard as we can. And this is almost like preserving myself until I explode.
When I went to the 70.3s in the halves, and I think I won 8 out of 15 70.3s. And honestly, every single one of them I finished, it was like, I didn't enjoy that. And I constantly, every time I got an interview, so I don't put me in the same group as the when are you going to step up? And I was like, whoa. To some degree, I felt like it was stepping out. And I did it when I turned 40. I love the sport of triathlon. And for me, it was as much experience, ticking a box, qualifying for Hawaii Ironman, doing Hawaii. I'd grown up as a kid in the 80s, watching Mark Allen, Dave Scott, the whole thing. And then I'd go on and watch my peers, my mates, Chris McCormack, Craig Alexander, whoever it is, all go over to Hawaii and have big success. And I thought, I want to be a part of that. So I went and did it. I got to see a lot of the road. I was very lonely. It was a long day. It was not a great experience, but it was a good experience, if you know what I mean. I got some joy out of it, but it certainly was brutal. So I think it's one of those things, if you're not desperately wanting to do it, I don't think it is the right move then.
No, I think, we actually want to do some stage race mountain biking is kind of Rachel and myself want to do the epic, the Absa Cape Epic. She's like, oh, that looks crazy. That looks exciting. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I looked and I was, hopefully we can get a comp entry and we can go there and just race it. And I think that's, there's a couple of, also with Super League coming about now, in the next 10 years, I'm hoping that Super League is going to become a mainstay. The really short, I think people's attention span, the one thing that I noticed as well, the shorter the racing, the better for TV.
Mm-hmm.
And, for commercial side of things that sell are things that are fast, things that are short, things that, I don't know, people can sit down for 20 minutes, have some lunch or whatever and watch, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Super League racing, what Mac has put on, that's how we all learned our trade in the 90s. It's great racing to be a part of. It's adrenaline, it's fast, it's furious, and I agree with you. I think as a fan, it's so much more fun to watch.
I think after racing, it sounds horrible, but a lot of my friends back home asked me like, "Oh, when are you doing the next Super League race?" And I'd already done like 6 or 7 World Series races, and I said, "No, I raced the World Series race." "Yeah, but that doesn't come on television." And no. I said, "What?" And I looked, and the Super League took the rights for the ITU for the television rights in South Africa. So all my friends only see Super League races.
Oh no!
And so it's interesting, but I think also because there's less athletes, each athlete actually becomes like a star, which
for sure.
which is great. And I mean, it's I think it's definitely then the thing is you can't have the numbers. You can't have like 60 athletes racing and that type of thing. But athletes always spend more time together as well because there's no federations and there's no things, and so it's like the athletes actually coming together and there's actually more interaction with each other, which is actually also quite nice.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. It's one of the things that once we got into the Olympics, I was in the sport, before triathlon was in the Olympics, and then it came to the Olympics, and it all became a little bit more about federations. And before that, all the athletes used to mingle a lot more at the breakfast table at the hotels, and we all hung out a fair bit. And then all of a sudden, suddenly you got the German team over there, the French over there. And I was like, what's going on? These are all my mates, and now they're all kind of sitting in their country areas, and we lost a little bit of that mateship, that brotherhood that we had. And I think you're right. I think the professional type series like the Super League, they bring that back. Mate, I just think this has been absolutely fantastic. I could keep chatting to you for another hour or two because I think you and I both enjoyed talking about the sport. There's a lot of similarities of your career and mine, and that was one of the reasons I really wanted you on the show. I think you're doing incredible work, mate, and I do think a winning streak is only just around the corner for you. I still think there's tremendous potential in you. So I'm really excited to see you race both, finishing this year and into next year, and hopefully a lot more into the future.
No, awesome. Yeah, thanks. I think it was. I totally do agree. We could chat until the cows come home, I definitely think that they're next year is another year to shine for me as well. Tokyo this year, I'm kind of thinking, I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm not 33 or 34 now, because then next year I'll be like, I'm 35. I'm not going to be fast enough. So hopefully 32, I should still be pretty good next year. And after that, looking forward to seeing what we're going to do next. We've got some wild ideas for the year after the Olympics. Something to do with a camper van and traveling and racing everywhere, which is going to be pretty epic. I think we've got a lot of cool things coming up after the Olympics as well as Olympics and beyond. So thanks for the chat.
All right, mate. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for listening. You can go to bennettendurance.com/media to get all the show notes and timestamps and links to Richard Murray and his YouTube and Facebook and everything else that he's got going on. Make sure you go check him out. Richard, thanks again, buddy. Really appreciate it. Stay on the line.
100, shall do. Cheers. Thanks for the chat.
Thanks a lot for listening to Be With Champions. If you've enjoyed the show, your support would truly be appreciated. You can visit the Be With Champions Patreon page, or you can subscribe with your podcast app of choice. Don't miss the next episode, so subscribe and be notified. For show notes, if you want to know more, please visit bennettendurance.com. I'm Phil Liggett, and on behalf of Greg Bennett, here's to the next time, and I hope you will join Greg again very soon.